Good evening, everyone, and welcome to day 6 of our Getting Started with Salesforce Service Cloud. And today we're going to be looking into entitlements and milestones. So today is very important because it gives you the foundation to start working or start resolving cases or issues in Salesforce using Service Cloud. You've seen how Service Cloud can be used, how knowledge articles can be used to resolve cases effectively. You've seen how productivity tools such as macros and quick tests can be used to resolve cases. Now you're going to see how entitlement and milestone works. But before we go into the hands-on session, which is more practical, let's go into the theoretical session of understanding what entitlement is and how it works. So in Salesforce, we introduced Salesforce entitlements, and according to Salesforce, entitlements and milestones are one of the most important features which enables you to manage cases effectively. So what does that mean, and why do we need this? Okay, let's imagine we have 1,000 cases in Salesforce. How would your agent be able to manage these cases effectively without overwhelming themselves? How would they know which of the case is important? How would they know which of these customers are important? How would they know if this case needs to be closed as soon as possible? The entitlement and milestone process would ensure and guarantees that customers are happy with cases submitted and agents are managing cases coming to the Salesforce effectively. So understanding how entitlement and milestone works can help agents work on cases backlog efficiently, okay? So what are the use cases? Let's imagine products that require support. Let's say you have, or you just bought a washing machine. Your company provides washing machine to a client. And based on the warranty on the washing machine, you need to help them install the washing machine in their house. So after purchase, they also purchase an additional support to help with the installation. So technically what the customer is buying is an entitlement. They are buying installation support, okay? How to prioritize cases. You receive a bunch of cases in the system. You have 3 types of customers: basic, standard, professional. You cannot reply all the cases in a day. Yeah, fair enough. But how do you prioritize which of the case to reply? What time of the day do you need to reply this case? You can use the concept of entitlement and milestone to do that. In addition to that, if a customer should be supported, okay, for instance, washing machine, something gets spoiled, or maybe the customer just bought a new laptop and the laptop screen is not working. Should the customer be supported? Maybe yes. Why? Because it's a brand new laptop with a warranty. This has nothing to do with whether they purchase extra installation or not, but it is a brand new laptop. If it's not working, that means the laptop is faulty and they need support because they have a warranty on that laptop. So that's a use case for entitlement and milestone. In addition to that, do you want to be compliant of your legal agreements? So let's say you have an agreement with whatever customer you have, and that customer says, I need 24 hours support. If any issue happens, for instance, you have AWS server, and the customer that is providing you the AWS server says, whatever happened, this server needs to be online 24 hours, 24/7. You can use entitlement and milestone to support that process to ensure that this customer is always happy with you because you're tracking how this customer get their issue resolved. So with Salesforce, you want to ask 3 business questions. You want to ask 3 questions. Entitlement definition. Which of these customers should get support and which of the customers should not get support? What that means is that when a case is created or when a case comes into your Salesforce hub, as a business, you want to find out one question. Is this person entitled to support? And if not, who should be getting support? Who shouldn't be getting support? That's the first question you want to ask. Now, let's assume that this client is getting support. Then you want to find out what process should be put in place. How should we support this customer? Because different customers can have different levels of support. So you want to find out how should the process take place. And now, once you have the process in place, this customer should be supported via email. This customer should be supported via phone. This customer should be supported via whatever means. Then you go to the next level, milestones. How do you track? When should we support them? How do you track the support received by this customer? What does that mean? It means that how do you know that we've responded to this customer? How do you know that 8 hours has not gone by before the next engagement with this customer? This is the milestone. So you want to ask these 3 business questions to implement a successful entitlement process in the business. Okay, so now let's go further into key definitions. What is an entitlement? How does it work? So entitlement is a unit of customer support, okay, such as phone call, web support, email. So let's say a customer send an email, created a case, or customer calls you and you say, customer says, I cannot see my learning on my single login. The first thing you want to find out is this: is the customer a professional member or not? If the customer is not a professional member, then definitely they cannot see my learning on the single login. Guess what? When that crate is created, you look at the customer account and realize this customer is not a professional member. You will close the case. Case closed. You can just send an automated article that shows that you need to be a professional member before you can see my learning. And you close the case. You don't even wait for the customer to get back to you. Customers can create another new case and they can address another issue. But for that case, you have already decided the fate of that customer by saying you are not a professional member. That is why you cannot see my learning on your dashboard. If you like to subscribe, please click here to subscribe to become a professional member. You've solved a case in seconds. Case closed. Entitlements also help the business with what type of customers, like I mentioned earlier, the professional member. But then again, the basic member also exists. They should get support. But what level of priority would you like to give this support? Okay, the entitlement checks whether this guy should get support, whether this guy is eligible for support, and what type of support should they get. So another use case is at Black Force, professional members should be able to watch videos on my learning, like I explained earlier. If the customer cannot watch video, they cannot reach out to Black Force. Okay, you can implement that kind of rigid support whereby they cannot even submit a case on the Black Force website. However, a customer, previously a professional, cannot see my learning on the dashboard. That's a different case. So previously, this customer was entitled to support, but because it has elapsed the duration of support, then the customer cannot get the same level of support. That means the contract has expired. So how do you manage those expectations? Because you would always get professionals coming in. But then again, these professionals will expire. So entitlement gives you the opportunity to set start dates of the entitlement and the end dates of the entitlement. Once you have those start date and the end date, you can determine the status of that entitlement. Based on the status of the entitlement, it can be active or inactive. So the first thing you check is this customer entitled? Is this entitlement active before you even get started with that customer? Okay? Let's go into more details about entitlement. A use case of an entitlement, like I said, is a legal warranty. You sold the product that has a legal warranty that you must support that product for X number of days. Support tier contracts. Let's say you have different level of support in the business. Those that you can go to their org and help them resolve issue. Those that you can only resolve issue via phone. Those that you have to come on site to help support. So you can create entitlement based on the type of services or products you are selling. In addition to that, you can have SLA. SLA means that the service level agreement is set to 24 hours. Any professional member that sends an email and a case is created for that professional member should get their case case closed. Understand the difference between responding to a case, trying to resolve a case, and closing a case. Responding to a case means that you acknowledge that this is a problem and you will look into it. Getting to resolve a case means that you're already looking into the case and you're trying to support. You're trying to ensure that the case is closed. However, SLA means that you must close that case within 24 hours. You can build a process that would help you achieve that without breaking SLA. Escalation rules are some of the things you put into place to ensure that a SLA is not break. If you're working in a very rigid environment that requires you to use SLA, you want to develop or design an entitlement process that would ensure that SLA is not breached, because some people get rewarded for SLA breach. If you work in a customer service environment, you will want to ensure that no SLA is breached. If you do, you can get penalty or fines, okay? Furthermore, features of entitlement. So you have entitlement, but it seems like something very vague right now. But guess what? Entitlement is just like an object in Salesforce. You have the account object, you have the contact object, you have entitlement, just like an object. Then you can customize entitlement, you can create processes with entitlement, you can create fields, you can even manipulate layouts for different entitlements. Okay, so entitlements are just the same way we have in a normal object in Salesforce. Also, you need to understand the important fields in an entitlement. For instance, you have account name. So what that means is that for every entitlement you create, you need to have an account associated to that account, so to that entitlement. This is the person that is receiving that entitlement. In addition to that, you have asset name. Asset name could just be you are selling something like a fridge, a laptop, something that the customer has bought that requires a warranty, that requires a level of support for that customer. Then we have what they call the service contract. When we get to types of the models of entitlement, you can see how service contract works with entitlement. What does that mean? It means that I can actually create a service contract attached to an entitlement, and I can put a period for that service contract. For instance, I want to sell SLA. I want to sell service support. This is a contract. A contract would have limits. It doesn't exist forever. You're not a professional member forever. You're a professional member for a period of time. This is an object that is related to entitlement. Okay? And we have what they call the process. What is the entitlement process? Again, I told you about milestones. Milestones and processes work in alignment. So what does that mean? You cannot have entitlement process without the milestones. The process is how you resolve the customer issue. That's the process of entitlement. It's different from the entitlement itself. So entitlement itself is, I have an entitlement, I need to get my issue resolved, and that's it. Entitlement process is the process which the agent takes to resolve that customer issue. And you also have per incident, per case. What does that mean? Per incident means that if I have an entitlement and this customer is a troublesome customer, or this customer does not understand Salesforce, and the customer is disturbing you, customer is sending case every day and is overwhelming the agent. Per incident means that I can only reply or resolve customer issue for 100 incidents. So if this customer say, okay, I want this case resolved. Yes, I'm going to resolve. I want this case resolved. Yes, I'm going to resolve. After the 100th time, then you cannot attend to that customer again. This is what the per incident means. And lastly, we have the status. The status obviously is for the status of that entitlement. Is this entitlement active or is it not active? So we need to have that in place, okay? So that's pretty much about entitlement. And when we get into the hands-on session, you will see how that works in reality. Now, let's go to milestones. We've talked about entitlements. What are milestones? Milestones are the required steps in entitlement process. I mentioned about the entitlement process in the last slide, and milestones is like an attribute of an entitlement process. Without the milestones, there is nothing like entitlement process. So entitlement process is the stages of milestones. The entitlement process is the stages of milestones, is the metric which you're looking at when you are resolving customer issue. Milestones will help you to understand exactly how to solve by placing touch points. The first 10 minutes of customer sending an email, I need to do what? I need to reply that email. The first 24 hours of customer creating a case, I need to reach out to the customer and ask, please, can I understand your problem? And can I get variables that would help me to solve your problems? And milestones also include a close date, whereby, okay, this case has been created today. This guy is entitled to resolve a case within 24 hours. Now, I need to ensure that in the next 24 hours, this guy can get his case closed. That's the milestones process. And now, at Black Force, for instance, a professional member should get their case resolved within 24 hours. That's a close stage of a milestone. Okay, so let's go into further types of milestones. We have what they call no recurrence milestone. What does that mean? A no recurrence milestone is essentially what happens once in a lifetime of a milestone. What does that mean? It means that, okay, a case has been created and the first milestone in the entitlement process kicks off. No recurrence means that after this milestone has taken place, it does not happen again. We have what they call independent milestones. These independent milestones would repeat without regard to when it was last triggered. So what does that mean? If we have a milestone that says that anytime a case has not been resolved in X number of days, trigger this milestone. This is a typical escalation rules. When a criteria is met, it triggers the escalation rule. It is also a type of milestone. And we have what they call sequential milestone. What is sequential milestone? Sequential milestone is when a milestone repeats itself. What's the use case of a sequential milestone? When you want to touch base with the customer, maybe you are the agent in charge of the customer, you ask the customer to restart their computer, and you said in 24 hours, they should turn back on their computer. You want to touch base with the customer to find out if the case has been resolved. That's what they call sequential. So when I touch base with the manager with the customer 5 hours ago, the trigger for the next milestone will be set, and you have to get in touch with that customer again before the milestone breaches. Okay. Now, we've seen types of milestone. Let's go to examples of milestones. Like I told you earlier, first touch. First touch example of a milestone is when you first create a case, the customer should get an email. So if the customer sends an email and a case has been created, you can use auto-response rule to trigger a first touch milestone if you're a smart business. Or you can use email alerts. After 10 minutes, and time-dependent workflow email alert can be used to trigger the first touch. First touch does not necessarily mean an agent would look at the case. It could be automated. In addition to that, you can actually automate the first touch by just opening the email and assigning to a particular agent to start solving. That's the first touch milestone. So you can set the milestone that 10 minutes after the case has been created, customers should get a feedback that their case is being looked into. Then we have what they call the close deadline milestone. The close deadline milestone is when this case must be closed according to the entitlement the customer has. Meaning that this case needs to be closed by within 24 hours. That's a close date milestone. And guess what? if the customer did not close this, the milestone will be breached. And it's a process, right? Keep updated milestone, like I said, it's a type of milestone whereby you touch base with the customer, making sure that the customer is not complaining, making sure that the customer is not screaming at you. Touch base milestone. Every 8 hours, if we haven't resolved this customer issue, I need to send an email to this customer. I need to call this customer. I need to find out if this customer cases has been resolved. Does not necessarily mean that the case has been resolved. It just means that I am in touch with this milestone, and it updates itself based on the last touch base, based on the last time you reach out to this customer. Okay, so you've seen an example of milestone. Let's go into the status you can have in a milestone. A typical status you can have in a milestone is compliant. You are compliant. The customer is happy. The target date for resolving this issue is not crossed, and everyone is happy. There's what they call open violation. Open violation milestone is, okay, milestone is not completed and target date is crossed. That means this case is still open and you have not met or you have not closed that case. This is a kind of situation whereby you should be escalating a case. And close violation. This is mostly used for record purposes, or you want to use it for statistics and trying to understand how you can manage your contact center in future. Because technically, close violation means that the case has been closed, target date was crossed before the case was closed. However, in reporting in future, we can request for cases that were closed as a result of cases that were closed after it has been violated. Okay, so close violation, close violation is used mostly for record and improvement of entitlement process. Okay, so now that we have an idea, let's go into a very high-level summary of what milestones and entitlements are. Entitlements allow the service agent to know who should get service. Milestone determines the service path from initiation to closure of the case. Milestones can be associated with timer and workflow rules that allows agents to prioritize case effectively. For instance, email alerts, creation of tasks, field updates, escalation, and the likes. Okay, so that's pretty much milestones and entitlements. And there's also what they call the models. But before we go to models, let's look at an example of a typical case study in a service customer center. A new case is submitted in the system. Agent will check if the case requires the use of an entitlement and checks if an entitlement exists for this account. Then, if the entitlement is not present on this account, the customer account, then just deny support, send generic email, and close the case. That's how you manage the non-applicable case. Okay, now the customer says, the agent says, there's an entitlement for this customer. Let's initiate the entitlement process. The agent checks which entitlement process is associated for this customer account. So you now start using the milestone. For the first 10 minutes, this customer needs to get an email. Okay, then you start determining the stages of that milestones. And after that, you can close the gate. But the most important thing here is that you need to close the case based on the entitlement process. So you cannot just close, not like you would be waiting for the case to be closed, but you're praying not to breach the agreement you have based on the entitlement process. Okay, so now that we've seen the example of an entitlement process, let's go to the models. When you have an entitlement process, you have to be logical about it. It depends on the business. The business determines what type of entitlement should be created. If you're just operating a simple learning management that has just one business model whereby you subscribe, maybe entitlement plus service contract would be ideal. If you have a software that you're providing for a business. That software is called BookMe. BookMe is a software that enables mentees to book mentors. The entitlement for a business could just be making sure BookMe is always online. Okay? And if you have different products, you're selling laptop, you're selling phones, you're selling gadgets, then you could implement the entitlement plus service contract and line items, meaning you can determine the type of entitlement based on the products. You can have it, laptop would have this type of entitlement. Phone would have this type of entitlement. Laptop, online learning would have this kind of entitlement. So it's tied down to a service contract, then it's tied down to entitlement. So every service contract would have the entitlement, and every line item will belong to the service contract. Okay, so let's see how this works in real life. Let's see how you can set up an entitlement. A very simple case study. Okay, very simple case study. We go to our hog, and obviously you will go to the setup. When you go to the setup, the first thing you want to check is this. You want to check, is entitlement enabled in the org? If you don't have entitlements, you have to make it enable. How do you enable the entitlement? You go to the settings. Now, you need to be very observant here. This is to enable entitlements. By default, I think in the Lightning, entitlements are enabled. However, maybe in Classic, you don't have entitlement enabled. After that, you want to do one or two things. You want to do active same account on case, meaning that I want to make sure that my entitlement is not just generic to all accounts. It has to be showing for a particular account. And it has to be showing for a particular contact if you want it. Or you have to make sure that only active entitlements are enabled. And it's same account on the case. Once you have that, you save. Okay? Once you save, you've enabled entitlements. The next thing you have to do is make sure that entitlement is visible on the account object. So what you want to do is you want to go to the account and you want to go to the page layout of the account. Then you go to the account page layout and you go to the related list. The related list will show you how you can bring entitlements. You look for entitlement, you drag it into the related list, and I told you about service contracts, okay? Remember, I told you we have entitlement only, we have entitlement plus service contract, then we have entitlement plus service contract plus line item. Line item is associated with service contract. Service contract is associated with entitlements, okay? And they are associated to accounts. So you can have entitlement on an account, on an asset, on a work order item, okay? But for tonight, we're going to be focusing on just accounts, okay? So now that I'm back here, I have my entitlement. There's also this service contract that I want to put on an entitlement. So I save it there and I save. It's going to ask you, you have, obviously this is just common admin stuff. So we're going to continue. And now you've put the entitlement on the account page. The next thing you want to do is you want to go to the service contract. Before you go to service contract, let's go to case. I go to case. Again, I go to the page layout of case and I click on just a normal case. Then I go to related, not before related, I try to clean up my case. For instance, this is my service console. Okay, this is my service console. And if you look at the service console case, let me edit this page. Edit the page to show details first, okay? Go to this. I'll bring details up, okay? And my default to be details, okay? So details will show first, okay? Save, close. Now, I want to be able to see customer entitlement straight off, okay? I want to be able to see customer entitlement straight off. I will create a new session at the top of the case. I'll make it entitlement and milestones. And milestones, okay? I click OK. And now that I have entitlement and milestones, I can now drag the entitlement process. If I have it, I'll drag it there. The start date of the entitlement, the name of the entitlement. Then I can drag the end date of the entitlement. Then I can also drag the milestone status, okay? So now I have created an entitlement process, okay? And the next thing I need to do now is to go to my service contract because I want to set up entitlement, service contract, and line items, okay? Okay, I have the case layout. No, sorry, I'm going to service contract. And I have the layout of the service contract. Okay, and what do I want to put on the service contract? I want to make sure that the service contract has everything I want. And also on the related, I want to check if I can put the cases as well, okay? And I can put entitlements. That means that you can move between different pages of the service contract and you can see the cases associated to a particular service contract and you can also see the entitlement associated to a particular service contract. But more importantly, you want to see the contract line items, okay? The contract line items needs to be visible. Okay, so I put that and I can just put the entitlement just for the benefit of those that want to verify that you save, okay? Now, after I've set up the service contract, I go to the entitlement object itself, okay? The entitlement object itself, I need to make sure that I have the entitlement per case and I need to make sure that I can see the entitlement name, the status, and everything, okay? So I go to the entitlement. And I go to the page layout. And I go to remaining cases is there, okay? Remaining cases is when I say, okay, this customer, you've sent almost 100 emails in a day. We're not going to attend to you again because you have reached your capacity of attending to the customer, okay? And you want to, let me see what this is. Remaining work orders, we're not using work orders, so it doesn't really matter. And you want to see the contract line item if you want to, okay? So we have everything needed, save. So the first thing first, that we've set up the entitlement, the service contract, the case. Let's now go into the front end. Remember, we've modified the case objects. The entitlement needs to be showing. Let me check why it's not showing. Give me 1 minute. Go to cases. Okay, you go to case, go to page layout. Go to case layout. We've created entitlement process, entitlement and milestones, but it should be showing. Let me preview as a system admin, just to be sure that system admin can see. I go to system admin. System admins cannot even see it. Okay, I think I know the problem. Entitlement name, process start dates. Let's go to fields and relationships. So what I want to see is this. Look at, I have case page layout. And if you look at the case page layout, it's supposed to have entitlement and milestones, right? And it's not having it. So this case information, okay, what I want to make sure that is that the entitlement and milestones is showing at this top. Okay, save. And once I have the case layout, I want to go to the fields and relationships. Okay, I want to go to the fields and relationship and I look for entitlements. Entitlement name. So refresh this, is not showing, just to be sure that that's the problem. Okay, it's still not showing, right? Let's go to set field security and we make sure that we have the visibility shown for entitlement name. Let's go to entitlements. Okay, go to process end time, set visibility. And we have that, we save. And we go to another entitlement, making sure that all the fields we have shown, all the fields we have is being shown. Okay, start entitlements, make it visible. Okay, and we go to milestones to make it visible as well. Okay. And we also make sure that the inquiry is also making reference to, is also having the changes we have in the case layout. Okay. Milestones and entitlements. Okay. And we drag the entitlement processes there, the entitlement name. Okay. And we also have the milestone status there. Okay. Save. And we go to the issue layout as well, making sure that, so in real situation, in real life, you need to have a layout based on the case layout. So you don't have to rework this all the time. But obviously, because we've created different record types in previous times, so we cannot control the things we've done previously, right? But in ideal situation, you should have all your pages designed. First, you have a standard page layout design. Then you create other page layouts as a result of the existing page layout, okay? So now we have that, we save. We go to, I want to preview this page layout as an admin so I can see. No, let me just preview the case layout so I can see as an admin, okay? Preview as an admin. And I preview so I can see my entitlement process, okay? That's fine. So when I refresh this, I can now see the entitlement name, okay? So now we know that when this case is open, we can see automatically. So this is what you need to do. Design this layout like this. You can collapse entitlement, that's fine, but you can design entitlement and milestone for that case. Now, we need to create an entitlement. We go to Edit, Add More. We go to Entitlements. Okay? We add entitlements. We also want to add service contracts. Service contracts. save. Okay, so now we have service contract and we have entitlement. Let's go to entitlements and create an entitlement. Remember, entitlement is a unit of support, phone support, web support for this account. So I click on new and I say, okay, Babatope's entitlement. Okay, and the type is phone support. You can add more support. You can add more email support. You can add one-on-one support. You can add whatever type of support you want to give Babatope. Okay, you add Babatope's account. Okay, so Babatope account needs to have been in the system. Babatope's account. Obviously, you should have created this account previously in the system. Okay, and I'll just save. So now you created an entitlement for Babatope. Okay, and if you have asset name, you can add the asset name. But don't let us do all this now. Let's just save this entitlement. So now you've created an entitlement and you've seen Babatope's entitlement. So now let's create a case. If you create a case, you can create a case from here. Okay, you can create a case from here, but you can also create a case from the entitlement that you've created. So I can select Babatope's entitlement. The start date of the entitlement is this, and you can fill new, contact name, Babatope Olajide, account name, Babatope as accounts, and you save. Okay, so now you have created an entitlement for Babatope. As you can see, the milestone is not in process. There is nothing called entitlement process in place right now. So what this means is that you've created an entitlement and the entitlement start time is this. That's the end of entitlement. But there is more to entitlement than just saying you have an entitlement. You need to be able to say, this is the reason why you're creating an entitlement. This entitlement is meant to do certain things. This entitlement is meant to solve an issue. For instance, you can include per incident, and you can include 100 year, which is fine, okay? And you can say, okay, remaining cases is 100 if you want to do that, or you can just take this off. You don't want to complicate things, okay? But let's take this off. Let's put this here. And now you want to do more. What do you want to do? You want to start an entitlement. You want to put an end date of an entitlement, meaning that when this case is open, you can see immediately that Babatope has an entitlement, and this is the current status of the entitlement. Okay, so let's put start date of 15 and the end date of next year. So Babatope has a 1 year entitlement with Black Force. Okay, and you save. So once you save that, you will, you can set remaining cases when per incident is disabled. I thought I disabled per incident. Okay, save. Save. Okay, as you can see, Babatope is now having an active status for entitlements, meaning that anytime I go to Babatope's case, if I go to cases, I go to a new case, I can immediately see that Babatope has an entitlement called Babatope's entitlement, and I can view Babatope's entitlement and I see that it is active. So if the start date is, let's say, January, and the end date is February 15, this status will say inactive. You cannot control this status. It's automatically based on the start date and the end date. But the bottom line is this: you have an entitlement and you need to support Babatope's entitlement. That's all. Now, let's see a better use case for entitlement for Babatope in such that I want to include a service contract that is being managed by the system. I go to service contracts. I click on new, and I want to create Babatope's contract. One thing you need to understand is this. This process needs to be automated. Once the Babatope's account is created, depending on what they've purchased, you don't create this manually. That's the key thing here. You don't create an entitlement manually. Imagine having to create entitlement all the time. You automate this process. If the product purchase is professional, automatically use a process builder to create an entitlement. If the project, the Babatope has purchased a service contract, automatically create an entitlement for Babatope. So you don't do what I'm doing right now manually. You do it automatically. Okay? You say this is 12-month contract, is again associated to Babatope, and the contact is Babatope. Okay? Then you save. Once you have this contract enabled, you can now do what association is, because by association, Babatope has an entitlement and Babatope has a contract. You can now look at, after service contracts, you have what they call the line item for that service contract. So Babatope is purchasing an agreement with Black Force that ensures that it gets a 24-hour supply. Okay? SLA is bronze, and it is costing Babatope $30,000 a year. This is a contract for a particular service on Babatope's entitlement. So you have a service contract for Babatope. You can have as many service contracts, but obviously you don't want to have similar contract line item. You want to have maybe gold for customer support, another thing for email support, another thing for XYZ support. So you have a contract, and you can have as many contract line items for Babatope's contract. So if you now go backwards, you'll be able to see that Babatope has an entitlement, there's a service contract on Babatope's entitlement, and anytime Babatope creates a case, we can see the entitlement for Babatope. As you can see, there is no automation in place. The only thing I'm just blabbing about since morning is a process. Customer has created a new case. And this new case, as you can see, has an entitlement. The agent will go and check, okay, Babatope has an entitlement, but this entitlement, hold on for a bit, let's include the contract for Babatope save. So the agent will now say, this entitlement has a service contract. Let's go to the service contract. This service contract has to do with SLA. Okay, you see the service contract, and you see that, okay, the service contract has this line item that has to do with SLA. So as you can see, there's a process, but this process is currently done manually, meaning that the agent will still be thinking through, how do I resolve Babatope Olajide? Yes, he has an entitlement. How do I know the type of entitlement he has? It's a phone support entitlement. Under that phone support entitlement, what is the service contract? Is it still active? Is it still in process? Something like that you need to do. Now that you have created an entitlement, you've created a contract, you've created a line item for that contract. What you now need to do is create an entitlement process. An entitlement process is step-by-step milestones. Because Babatope has an entitlement, Babatope has an active entitlement, then I can attend to Babatope. If Babatope does not have an entitlement, does not have a contract, is not active, I cannot attend to Babatope. So what we need to do now is to create an entitlement process. How do you create an entitlement process? As I discussed earlier, the entitlement process helps you to see sequence. Okay, what do I need to do? Because Babatope has an entitlement, the entitlement is active, and there's a contract for that entitlement. You need to do what? You need to activate a process. You need to create a process. So now I have what they call milestones. Milestones is the beginning of the process. You can have different milestones. So what are the types of milestones you can have? You can have examples of milestones. The first touch, anytime a case has been created, the first touch milestones ensure that Babatope gets an email. And the close date milestone ensures that Babatope's case is closed within 24 hours. It's a process, okay? So I go to milestones, I go to new milestones, and I say first touch milestone, okay? First touch milestone, no reoccurrence, meaning that once this milestone has taken place, it doesn't come back again. You've already done it, okay? I save. I need to create another milestone again, and this milestone is close date milestone, meaning that once I close this milestone, it doesn't happen again. Another milestone that says touch points. I want to touch points with the customer, but touch point milestone needs to be sequential, right? Meaning that it's going to reoccur, okay? It's going to reoccur based on the last trigger. It's going to keep reoccurring, okay? It's going to keep reoccurring. You can create another milestone called independent. Independent milestone is a milestone that does not regard whatever you're doing in terms of process. It will trigger. It's part of the entire, it's part of the entitlement process, but it will trigger. Okay, so now we've created milestones. Let's go back to entitlements and create what we call entitlement process. We want to kickstart an entitlement. I call it, it's on the case entitlement. So entitlement process are customizable timelines that include all the steps, the milestones that we've created that support agent must complete to resolve a case, meaning that the support agent needs to follow this process. This is the process we have implemented at Black Force. Anytime you open a case, the first thing you want to check is this customer actively entitled for a reply? We've optimized our articles. We've optimized our community. We've optimized our quick tests. We've optimized our macros. Now we want to address customers that are entitled because they paid more for the training. Then we called it entitlement process called the Black Force process. No, call it Black Force professional process, meaning that you can have different processes for different type of entitlement. Black Force standard process, Black Force basic process. This is how you build a service center that is robust and they provide the same quality of responses based on what the customer is entitled to. Okay? Case enter the process. How would this case trigger? How would this entitlement work for this case? Meaning that when this case is created, how would this entitlement work for this case? When would the milestones start counting? Case exit. When would the milestones stop? Obviously, when the case is closed. When it starts counting is when the case is created. Now, this is very important if you are providing what they call 24/7 customer support, meaning that every hours, every minute matters when it comes to the business hours. You can create different business hours for your entitlement process. I click on save. Now you can see a timeline. The close date entitlement process, you create a post. Let's create the milestones needed for this entitlement process. The first one is the first touch, which is the first time you are getting in touch with these milestones, with this entitlement. And we say within 60 minutes. Within 60 minutes, this case is being created. So we're talking a minute, okay? Within 60 minutes, this case has been created. Someone needs to open this case and start working on this case, okay? The entitlement process is the entitlement process, and you say 1, which is the first order. You want this to happen first. The second one is the touch points. You're saying after maybe 240 minutes, 60 divided by that, after 4 hours, you want the agent to look into this case again. After 4 hours, you want this agent to look into this case. So you need to have a criteria. You cannot have entitlement process. Why? Because it is no longer an entitlement, it's a touch points and is reoccurring. So you need to use a criteria. The order is 2, meaning that this is the second thing the entitlement process should be looking at. And what is the criteria? You have to choose a criteria, otherwise it will never trigger, because milestone criteria will be looking for criteria. And if it doesn't have criteria, it will never trigger. Then I'm gonna say if the status has changed to working, meaning that a customer agent has picked up this case and a customer agent is now working on this case. So after 4 hours, a customer has picked up this case and it has not happened yet. You need to ensure that, or you need to tell the system, maybe a manager or whatever, that they need the agent that, man, you are breaking the rules of the Black Force professional process. Then the last one, which obviously is not the last one, but it's up to you in terms of the business operations you want to put in place. You have what they call the close dates. The close date, as you can see, you can set criteria, but entitlement process is also enabled. And because entitlement process is enabled, you don't need a criteria for that. You just say, after 90, you need to close this. Maybe after 7 days, but you can even make it more interesting. After 360 is six hours, okay? Or whatever it is. I'm just giving an example, right? So this is like 6 hours. You need to close the process. So I say. So now we have a process. To make sure that this process is active for use, you need to activate this process. Once you activate this process, you say you have created an entitlement process. The first thing you need to do when this customer send an email or create a case is to ensure that you reach out to the customer within the first 1 hour. After reaching out to the customer, the second time is the fourth hour. You need to touch base with this customer, making sure that this customer is happy and you're looking at their case. And the last is to make sure that within 6 hours, this case is closed. So let's see an example of that in real life. You have this customer, okay, and is entitled. Let's go to the entitlement of this customer. Okay, let's associate a process which is Black Force professional process for this customer. So this customer is now working, you're now resolving this customer's case based on Black Force professional process, okay? Let's go back to this, refresh this. And you have, let me see, sorry. You have you have active, first touch, no recurring, 60 minutes, touch point, that's fine. So let's go to a new case, okay? Maybe that case has happened and nothing happened. So let's say you have an entitlement, okay? You have a start date of today, and you have end date to be based on the entitlement, okay? The case is new, and you have this, you have that, which is, you have a contact, let's call this Babatope. You have account name, let's call it Babatope account. Okay, and you have subjects. Let's call this subject a robot or something like I need help. Okay, and you save. Okay, and once you've created an entitlement, because this Babatope entitlement is active, you can see that first touch, 8 hours. You need to touch base with this guy. But is it 8 hours we put? Let me check again. First touch 60. Oh yeah, business process. It's using business process. So business time, business hours is triggered. So Salesforce knows that, oh, this is off business hours. So it's saying maybe the next business hours or something, that's when this will happen, okay? So this is the first touch. You have to reply to this customer within 8 hours. But if this is 24-hour support, then you know that you have to reply to this customer. But then again, if you look at the created dates, 9:06 p.m. I don't know what the system date is saying, but what it's saying literally is that this is now overdue. Okay, but obviously we just created a case, right? So it has to do with the business hours and stuff like that. So now that you say, okay, I've attended to this guy's case and marked as completed. The first milestone has been completed. What is the next one? The first touch, which it has not been violated yet, meaning that it is in open violation because it is overdue. Okay, you have done the first day, the first milestone, which is completed, but now the close date is overdue. You need to have closed this date, but I think we did not implement the start date and all those kind of stuff properly. But then again, you know that this is now overdue. Okay, now let's change the status of this case. The status of this case is new. Let's check it to working. Okay. When you see working, you need to touch base. That means that you obviously the close dates, we did not arrange the timing properly. The timing should be far away. It shouldn't be 360. 360 will be too soon, right? So you have this, right? Once you have this, then you know that you have to touch points with this guy in 3 hours, 59 minutes. And if we say you've touched points with this guy in 3 hours, 55 minutes, you mark it as completed, then it's now going to say the last stage is to close dates. Then you mark close dates, then you're done with the milestones. But it's not usually this fast, okay? What you need to do is you need to make sure that when you're setting up this milestone, you need to actually know the timing you're putting, okay? So the first touch point, you can easily say, let's go back to milestones. We go back to milestones I edit. I can say first touch point. Let me, can I edit the milestones? Let's go to milestones. Let me see, can I edit the, entitlement process? Go to Black Force process. Go to this, okay? And if you cannot edit it, you can just delete it. But then again, if you put this to 240, we're not going to have a lot of conflict, okay? We're just going to see a very smooth process. Touch points will come after first touch, and touch points will happen sequentially. Every 8 hours, you need to reach out to the customer. Then the close date will kick in based on what you've set. But then again, you cannot have a close date of 360 when the touch point is 240, okay? We have to logically define those dates. Now that you've seen that, but there is more to the milestones. The milestone is just to guide you on when to complete certain things. There is still more to the entitlement process. You click on the process, and this is where you start creating actions. Remember, compliance, open violation, close violation. What does that mean? It means that if this touch point is still within the 60 minutes that we've set, it should be fine. However, if it is not within the 60 minutes, you have to add some warning action. Warning action meaning that, okay, after 10 minutes, okay? After 10 minutes, after 10 minutes before the first touch kicks in, send a warning that to, what do you want to send a warning? You want to send an email alert to the agent the agent in charge of case, okay? And you use whatever email template you've created to send that warning, okay? I'm just selecting any email, but guess what? This is who you want to send an email to, the case owner. You want to send a warning email to the case owner saying that we have a first touch that needs to kick in, but you have not done it. However, if the agent has done it, you can send a field update. Maybe you have some fields here that you want to update. When a first touch kicks in, maybe you want to update the status feed to working. Then you update a field. If the first touch has taken place, you update a field, say, update status field. These are actions that you want to carry out once the first touch is, edit, specific value, just say working, okay? So once the first touch has taken place and it is successful, update the field to working. So you are automating an entitlement process. Until it is being violated, that's when you want to stop. You want to send a violation trigger. 10 minutes after, as you can see, after first touch, meaning that if you don't send an email within 10 minutes of receiving the case, send a violation email. So what can you do here? You can send an email alert to the manager saying violated case. Okay? And you can use whatever email template you use, but you can send an email to the manager. Okay? And you can send an email to a public group that has the managers for case management. This is the life cycle of entitlement process. This is how you manage a case, from initiating what it is, why you need it, and ensuring that you do not violate a case that requires urgent attention. Remember, you need to have designed the business. You need to have said, this is our ways of doing things. You've seen how you can create an entitlement. You've seen how you can create an entitlement process. You've seen how you can associate a contract to an entitlement. And you've seen how you can associate a service level agreement to a contract. How you now bring everything together is your job as a consultant. Your job as a consultant is to analyze the business. Okay? Analyze the business. And based on your analysis, develop an entitlement process. Develop a milestone that would ensure that all the customers of that business are happy. So I just wanted to show you the relationship between entitlements, milestones, and stuff. So you can always see how this stuff works, okay? Okay, it's always a lookup between entitlement and contracts. Then you have contract line item. Contract line item. Okay? So if you're an admin, you should, I wouldn't say you should know this, but you get what I mean, right? Service contract is a master detail to contract line item, and contract line item is lookup to entitlements. Service contract is lookup to entitlement, okay? So you can have contract line item and entitlement. You can have entitlement to service contract, and everything has to relate to an account, because account is the main thing here. Account is what is holding these guys together, okay? It's an account you should have your entitlement to. So now let me explain how this will work in real life. All this stuff that I was creating, I don't have to create it manually. You have to create a process, a flow that would say anytime an account has been created in the system, check the purchase order for that account. That purchase will now determine whether the guy gets, because this is now a personalized service contract. As you can see, it says Babatope service contract. It's not a generic service contract, okay? Babatope's entitlement. If you want to make this generic entitlement, you can. But right now, it is personalized, okay? So what I will say is this. You've seen how this process works. I'm going to take a pause to find out if you guys actually get it and if you have any questions, okay? So please raise your hands up and we can answer the question one after the other. Thank you. I hope this makes sense to you guys. I just wanted to be sure because it's a lot. However, this is Service Cloud. This is the entire purpose of managing client expectations. So I need to know if this makes sense to you and if you have any questions regarding what I've taught so far. It's very important you guys get it because what would happen is this. You'll be hired as a consultant and you'll be asked to implement an entitlement process in the system. How do you manage an entitlement process? It's very important you get this because this will be the foundation of your consultancy, okay? So I'm going to call after the other. Babs, can unmute yourself and speak, please.
Hello, Babatope. Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Very well, sir. Okay, so I have two areas where I think I need a bit of clarification. I'm not sure if I missed it in the class. Please pardon me if that's the case. The first one is you mentioned that entitlement. You actually looked at it as an object in one instance, and you also looked at it as a record in another instance. So I kind of got a bit confused there because in my mind, I thought I'm looking at it now. It's a record, right? Is it a record? I'm trying to be very clear on exactly how do you approach it. Is it an hybrid or could it serve dual purposes? Because I see you've used it in different instances. For example, when you did membership, when you did entitlement object as well. So that's one of the clarifications that I'm trying to get. The second thing also is I'm understanding entitlement, but my understanding of it, I'm looking at another example in my mind, like the Amex, the American Express card, right? They have the platinum card, the black card, and the gold card, and all of that. And in some instances, they'll tell you that you have some of these privileges, like they say membership has these privileges. And in this case, maybe you're entitled to free TSA pre-check, or you're entitled to $30 Uber. All of those benefits are, when I call them or when people call them, immediately is that what they look at first of all to say, okay, this person is a gold member, this person is a black member, and because he's a black member, his benefits are embedded inside the front end that I'm seeing as a customer service agent. Is that a thinking? That's the second question that I have, sir. Okay,
to answer your second question, when they check you're a gold member, they are only checking maybe the feature. When it comes to sales and marketing applications, you're going to learn more about that. However, if you have an issue, that's the purpose of entitlement. Do you have an issue with your card? If you have an issue with your card, how should they go about helping you? That's entitlement process. Entitlement is, can they help you? Should they even be picking up your call? Or should they just say, oh, reach out to or go online and see how to resolve your issue? Okay, so your entitlement is based on your profile. Sales and application has to do with maybe they want to upsell, they want to tell you other stuff, or they want to treat. Yeah, entitlement actually deals with the way they treat you as well. If you say you're a gold member, they'll be rushing to treat you. Like, for instance, if you go to the bank and you have an average of $3 million or $10 million in your account, and you say you want to speak to the manager, they will respond to you urgently because they know that you taking off $3 million from your account will impact business. Okay? So they look at that to determine how I wouldn't say how to take you seriously, but how to be responsible to ensure that you are okay. That's entitlement, and that's the That's the type of entitlement. Now, when it comes to creating entitlement, it's just like any other records. You can create this one entitlement and use it for all professional. That's fine. But when you start introducing service contracts and everything, that's where it gets complicated. So you don't want to use one entitlement and create different line items. But if all professional will be using professional process, the same contract line item, the same service contract, then you can use one entitlement. But if different customers will be using different service contracts, then you don't want to use one entitlement. You want to create entitlement for each and every customers you have in the system. And this is usually done automatically. So I would recommend you use a flow to design the process of creating entitlements. Otherwise, your agent will be creating entitlement one after the other once you have a customer, okay? And remember, entitlement is just like an object. You can view all entitlements. You can personalize entitlement. You can add new fields on entitlement. It is just like another object in Salesforce. The only thing there is that it is associated to a case, okay? And it's also associated to an account object, okay? So that's what I would say. Matilda, unmute yourself and speak, please.
Okay, I have two questions. One, when you did your simulation, you created one case and were able to see the countdown. What if the same customer creates like multiple cases at a time? Does the agent see different milestone countdown on the console?
It is based on cases. So the milestones you're seeing right now is based on the case. So if you have like right now, I told you about, what did I tell you about milestones? If you go to milestones, no, actually, let me go to my slide. It's much better. If you go to milestones, okay, go to milestones. You have reoccurring, non-reoccurring, independent, and sequential. This one is reoccurring. As you can see, I mark as complete, and it is still coming up again. I mark as complete, it is still coming up again. I have to ensure that this case is closed. Okay, so milestones is based on this case. If this customer has another case, another milestones will be in process for that customer. If this customer has an entitlement, the milestones will trigger based on the entitlement, and it will be, working based on that milestone. Okay, what's the second question?
Okay, the other time you tried editing the milestone that it didn't work, could it be because the entitlement process was active?
I tried to edit the milestones. What
when we tried changing the time to a further time.
Oh, you just need to. Oh yeah. Most likely, most likely you're right. So let's see. You have two ways of doing it. Just create a new one, or you can just deactivate this milestone. But I'm guessing you can just create a new one. But you shouldn't like that. That's a good way to. You cannot edit something that is in process, right? So that's a good way to look at it. So let's go to milestones, and you go to the first touch. Okay. You can just recreate the milestone. It's just a milestone, right? It's just when you're creating a process, you determine the time. So if you feel like, oh, you made a mistake or something, just delete that occurrence of the milestones and create a new one. It's just a case of you saying, okay, this milestone does not, let's activate this. Okay, activate this, right? And if you cannot edit the time, because once you create the milestone, it kicks in, right? All you just need to do is go and delete the milestones, and you create a new one, or you create a new first touch milestone. Okay? But ideally, you should think carefully, because we were not thinking when we were creating this, right? We just put in milestones. Ideally, you should make sure that this is logical enough for it to kick in, and making sure that you have a close date. Otherwise, this whole process will just keep going on and on and on. Okay? Does that help? Is there any other question? Does that mean that this stuff is easy or you guys are totally clear? I just wanted to be sure because there are no questions. So it's a new concept. I want to find out if the entire process is easy and very easy to understand, or you just don't have questions. Please ask me questions if you have any questions, or we can go into maybe one or two things more, but please try to ask me questions if you have any question. So if I give you a project to help Black Force to initiate a very good entitlement process, you will be able to do that. Is that what you're telling me? I just want to be sure that you guys understand entitlement process. Okay, if that's the case, let's carry on. Let's just kind of like have a very good summary of what we've learned today. We understand that you need to have an entitlement associated to a case. And for you to make this entitlement visible, you need to go to the field accessibility and make sure that these fields are visible. After that, you need to make sure that you have what they call an entitlement created for that account. Without associating that entitlement to the account, you will not be able to use the entitlement. So entitlement is just a unit of support that the customer gets, meaning that this customer is eligible for a phone support. This customer is eligible for a web support and the likes of the type of support you want to give. Without a start date and end date, you cannot see the status of an entitlement. Once you create a start date and end date, then the status kicks in. The entitlement process is how the milestones come into play. Without the entitlement process, you cannot use milestones. However, you need to create a milestone before you can use an entitlement process. And the first touch is no reoccurrence, meaning that you don't need to trigger another process after you've initiated the first touch. And when you have a process, an action, you can create an action for a successful first touch. Okay? If the first touch was not completed or is about to be breached, let's say a case of an SLA, you can create a warning for that first touch. However, if it has been breached, then you create a violation for that first touch. Okay? So that's the entire process of case management. And this is what you're expected to know according to Salesforce. So now let's go to the Service Cloud. I like to use this to guide me so I know exactly what needs to be done. And based on what we've done so far, we've been able to cover a lot about the Service Cloud. We've covered industry knowledge, we've covered implementation strategies, we've covered knowledge management, we've covered case management. Tomorrow, we're going to be looking at interaction channels. As you can see, we've done most of the interaction channels. You've done the live chat, you've done community, you've done web to case, you've done email to case. The only thing we haven't done in international channel is we haven't done social media, okay? I will see the likelihood of us doing social media tomorrow. Then we can do more stuff in terms of maybe answering questions. If you have this particular business, what would be the best interaction channel to use to optimize the agent productivity? After that, we realized that the only thing left is the solution design. Solution design is very subjective. You cannot teach solution design. Solution design is something you have to come up with based on the knowledge of Service Cloud, based on what you've learned. And the contact center analysis, we've done something similar in the industry knowledge, meaning that you analyze the productivity of the agent and you want to get key metrics and find out how you can improve. So tomorrow we're going to cover some bit of interaction channels, some bit of contact center, and this interaction channel, we also cover the omni-channel, whereby you can route cases based on the availability of an agent, based on list, based on most available, and based on the queue, okay? And we are going to have our projects. So before we end the class for today, I want to find out if you guys have any other questions that is outside of what you're learning, and if you guys want to find out any other information about the ongoing training, so I can quickly attend to that. Do you guys have any question? Or do you guys have any concern about the ongoing training that you need me to attend to? And if you do not have that, I have an announcement which I want to communicate for the professional members. So if you're a professional member, as you can see, I sent a message in the group today saying that you should let me know or let Blackforce know about your continuation of the training subscription. What does that mean? It means that by default, Blackforce has set the training subscription to be $1,000, right? And every month we get to charge you $1,000, but the third month is $500. And we want to find out if we need to refund you $500 after the subscription has been charged, or you want us to cancel that subscription and you have to pay $500 extra in order to continue the subscription. You have to get back to us by Friday, because after Friday, I'm going to cancel all subscription. I don't want to go to your bank account to get money because I don't know your current situation. So I'm going to cancel all subscription, and you would need to resubscribe for just a month for the last payment to kick in, and that would hold your subscription for the next 1 year. Okay, so please kindly fill that form. It will help us really help manage this process. The form you need to fill is this form, okay? And I think about 12 people have filled it, but please select cancel subscription if you do not want us to renew, and you have to make 500 payments separately. To make that 500 payments separately, you just have to go to Affiliates and you go to subscription, which I'm going to put the link in the chat. So you just have to make that subscription you just have to click on subscribe now, and we're going to give you a code that will just make sure you pay 500, not 25, okay? And if you do not do that, we have to keep your subscription and we're going to refund you $500. And if obviously this is not applicable to you, just ignore the email or select I have made full payment. This does not apply to me, okay? Please let us know as soon as possible. If you do not, I will cancel all subscription. Again, I'm not interested in you making payment and you not putting effort into the training. You putting effort into the training is more important to me because that's my own KPI. Some agencies reach out to me and they want us to supply talent for their company. The only way I can supply talent for the company is if you are a professional member or if you have shown interest in the standard member. For instance, if you're a standard member, you are attending Service Cloud, you've shown interest that you want to carry on with Salesforce. It's a strong interest to me. And that shows that maybe you couldn't subscribe to professional because of financial issue. But I will prioritize professional member first. Anytime someone reach out to me, anytime agents want to collaborate, professional members will get first priority. So I need to know who is interested, who is working actively and just want a second job, or who is actually looking for a job. I need to know those information. And please, when I ask for certain CV, always put into perspective that some people are actually actively looking for a job. So always let me know that I am actively looking for a job, meaning that I don't have any job right now. So I can put you forward first. It won't be fair for people that have 100K job to be applying for another 100K job when someone is still within the community, still looking for jobs. So please be very accommodating of your colleagues. And I know some of you want to change job as well, which is fine. So I'm open to putting your application in, but still let me know that I'm currently having a good job, but I want to get into Salesforce. So I know the differences between the set of people. Omar, please unmute yourself and speak so I can address your situation.
Okay, yeah. So my question is regarding the Service Cloud training. Just something about the entitlement type. It's assigned to the account, but I wanted to know, can one account have more than one entitlement type, and then you have multiple when you set it up for the accounts?
So when you look at entitlement, right, is you can create...
exactly. Where you have type and you have phone support for that one. I just wanted to know, can you have multiple for the same account, multiple entitlements for the same account with different entitlement types?
So what you need to do is to go to schema. Okay, you can have entitlements as many as possible for that customer, right? You go to the schema, you go to account. This is why I paid a lot of attention in model development. Look at this account. Look at entitlements. What does that mean based on your admin learning? I can have many entitlements to an account. Master detail, meaning that I can add as many entitlements for my account. Okay? That's the way to answer the question. Technically, that's the way to answer the question. Alternatively, you can just go to the case. Okay? Just go to this case and you can keep adding entitlements. You can keep creating an entitlement. Go to entitlements. Okay? Once you click on entitlements, Babatope web entitlements. Okay? Then you change it to web support, Babatope's accounts, and the likes. Okay? Service contract, this and this stuff. Okay? Then you just, like that's how you, but that case, once you have a case, this case, you can only have one entitlement for that case. Okay? You can only have one entitlement for a case, but you can have as many entitlements for that account. Okay?
Okay. All right. Got it. It's clear. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there any other question, please? Any other question? This is very, very sweet. Look at, if we have this properly implemented for a business, that business should be successful. You just need to have a good architect that would think through what I've just said tonight and implement a process. Imagine Bell. Bell will be using entitlement process, because when you call Bell customer service to come and fix a telecom issue, they will first of all find out how many times do you have an entitlement, how many times have you called. They would want to know those information, because how do you optimize the service agent? It is through entitlement and milestones. And the agent productivity, anytime an agent opens a case, they'll be looking at what? What would they be looking at? They'll be looking at the milestone. It will be showing there, right there. First touch contact, second touch contact. Maybe you can even create a workflow. Look at this is where your technical skills will come in. You will create a workflow that says 5 touch points needs to be completed. If 5 touch points has been completed and the case is not resolved, what should you do? You should escalate this case. You should escalate this case. If after you update this field, maybe you create a new field on the case called touch point counts. You now say, first touch point is done, you put it 1, second touch point is 2, 5 touch points, this case is not closed yet, you escalate to the manager. That is solution design. I cannot teach you solution design. It has to come based on all the things I put into you. You have to now start thinking as a consultant, start solving problems. Salesforce is interesting, but you need to know what you're doing. Now you know knowledge. How can you make sure that you can close a case easily? Just type as many articles as possible. Categorize those articles and make sure that you have an answer for frequently asked questions. And inside the articles, you don't have to do anything as an agent again. Everything has been optimized. So please use the right tool. This is all about Service Cloud. Using the right tool to solve problems in Salesforce. Okay? So please try to watch this video because it's going to be very useful for your projects. And if we do not have any other questions after tonight, after this session, after now, I'm going to end the class. And I think we have about 20 minutes to spare, which is a good thing. It's interesting. We have it, but it's a good thing. Please, I'm going to give you back your 20 minutes. I think that's all from me. Take care of yourself, but please make sure you submit this if you're a professional member, so we can ensure that we cancel your subscription and you do not get charged. Okay, please try to submit this. And if you want to pay your 500, this is where to pay it. I'll put both links in the chat. Try to use that as much as possible so you don't disrupt, or I wouldn't say disrupt, you don't send too much email to the support, because support are really trying. Okay, All the best, guys. Take care. I will see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Bye, everyone.